Simenon!
Now, Simenon asked me recently, by the way, he's changed a lot from the young man I first encountered in my office. Simenon asked me in a somewhat mocking tone, "So, how's your Maigret coming along?" I tried to reply with the words he had once used. Well, he's taking shape. He's still just an outline, a hat, a coat, but it's his real hat, his real coat. Maybe the rest will come gradually, and he'll have 2 arms, 2 legs, maybe even a face. Maybe he'll even start to think for himself without the help of a novelist. And by the way, Simenon's now more or less the same age I was when we first met. At that time, he had a tendency to consider me as a mature, even an old man. I didn't ask him what he thought about that today, but I couldn't help remarking, "Do you know, with the years, you've started walking, smoking a pipe, and even talking like your Maigret?" Which is true, and which gives me, I hope the reader will grant me this, a quite delicious feeling of revenge. It is rather as if, late in the day, he was starting to think he was me.
It's amazing that Melvin Bragg interview that you sent me, because I've actually looked for stuff with him not speaking French. He was such like weird sparkly eyes, and he's like so like dryly amused and stuff. He must have been such a fucking freak, that guy.
I think those books were each like a boxing match for him. Didn't he spend like 2 weeks alone in a room or something?
Yeah. Like 11 days, he would like light the pipes, and he would have all the like sharpened pencils and couldn't.
Oh, he wrote it by hand?
Yeah, and then I was reading something that earlier on when he would write a book, he would like write like 80, 90 pages in a day and then just like vomit.
He said that he wrote them, he knew maybe 2 chapters ahead.
Yeah.
In his head, and then he just went into it and just wrote through it, you know.
The earlier ones I don't like as much because they're more like kind of plotty mystery things, and they're more kind of like, I like the later ones because they literally, it's like it's not there. It's like this weird sketch that you're getting. You are just feeling it so intensely that you're telling yourself the story. It's like he's barely doing anything.
What is that? Because you created things.
And it's in translation too. Like, how the fuck is he doing it in translation? In French, it must just be like magic in French.
I mean, people do seem to worship him there, but I can read some French, but I cannot read his books in French. I don't know why.
No, he's not easy to read in French.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's the first thing that I'm going to read is Simenon.
Yeah. No, it's really hard because it's all slangy and it's a particular time.
It's too freshly painted to be the scene of a tragedy, and the cliffs emerge from the mist exactly as they did on the postcards displayed by the door of the general store. The butcher, the baker, and the greengrocer could have been characters in a children's storybook. Was it just Maigret, or did other people feel the same nostalgia without admitting it? He so wished the world could be the one he had known as a child.
But I don't know how the fuck he does what he does with nothing. Nothing. And it's like, and it just perfectly...
Just a pipe. That's all he has to do.
But it literally does. But that's why those covers were great. There were those certain editions that just had the hat and the pipe. And
that's right.
Those are kind of perfect because that's all they are. It's just a hat and a pipe.
I mean, but the Paris that comes through, I think, in those books is you can smell it. You can drink the Calvados and by the river.
It truly is the thing where it's like it's better than the actual Paris.
Delicious.
It's better than the actual Paris.
Yeah. Like, nothing is. But that's the utopia of books, you know.
Because I just have knocked out like 4 in a row in the past like 4 days. Wow. I've just been like, and it's like, yeah, but he literally designed those to be read fast. And it's like, you're reading it as it's almost like that thing you were just showing me of the letters flashing that are drawing you through the reading experience of it.
Right.
It's like he's doing that. You're just so like, he's just like pulling you along, and you're like writing the story with him. It sounds stupid, but it's like...
I've been reading, let's say, Kinky Friedman on. I'm in my second Kinky novel this week, and I mean, he has a cigar, the green, the cat. He has these also these signifiers and not much else. And you also enter the world very easily and love him. By the way, Kinky mentioned both Maigret and Nero in the one.
Yeah. Well, a part of Kinky Friedman's thing is that he's bringing on
a whole huge section on Robert Louis Stevenson and how is this true that to this day he says when a boat comes to Samoa, they're greeted by a song, and one of the lines in the song is Mr. Robert Louis Stevenson on board? Because they loved him so much there that they had this. It's so cool.
I hope that's true. I wonder.
Oh, Billy.
There was one advantage to being in a small town when it came to crime solving. It was the reason Miss Jane Marple, arguably Agatha Christie's greatest detective, chose to live in St. Mary Mead instead of London. Jane Marple and Agatha Christie, I reflected as I sipped my coffee, were little old ladies themselves.
Oh, Billy.
Jane Marple, of course, would live forever in the timeless casino of fiction, waiting for the freckled, feckless hand of a young person in Wyoming to pluck her off some dusty shelf and fall in love with the mysteries of life. Agatha Christie, like Jimmy Rogers, wasn't around anymore, but in a sense I suppose they both still were, for they continued to ply silent rivers of words and music down into the yawning rugosities of our lives. Silver threads in an otherwise drab embroidery. It's too bad Jimmy and Agatha never met. I'd have made an interesting couple.
Maigret somehow got something more.
Well, it was
mystically. I mean, we said there is like this weird flavor of existentialism.
And in some ways, when I read his books, those Simenon books, I don't give a shit about the mystery. And that happens more as they go along. I care less and less because he clearly cares less and less. And literally, I read those books for his descriptions of the weather. It's like, the way he talks about the weather.
Beautiful.
Like, I have to read them because I fucking cannot believe how he captures
rainy,
drizzly.
But in Paris too, the air of Paris and the smell of the bakery or whatever. Yeah, it's
totally all of it. It's
also the joy of the Janvier guys, those books, the Swedish ones also can do that really well.
Those Martin Beck ones are really good too.
Yeah. But they're so based on Maigret, I think they
must be. And in some ways, it's like, it seems simple, but it's like you just said, the existentialist thing, that it's like, there is no, it's all like beyond good and evil stuff. There's no good guys, bad guys. Yeah. There's no it's like everything is sort of up for grabs a little bit. And there's this one guy kind of filtering all of it through his really empathetic mind.
It was just after 1 o'clock in the morning when the light went out in Maigret's office. Puffy-eyed with tiredness, Maigret pushed open the door to the inspector's office where young Lapointe and Bonfils were on duty. "Good night, boys," he grunted. In the vast corridor, the cleaning women were sweeping the floor, and he gave them a little wave. As always at that hour, there was a draft, and the staircase he descended in the company of Janvier was damp and freezing. This was mid-November, and it had rained all day. Maigret hadn't left the stiflingly hot atmosphere of his office since 8 o'clock in the previous morning. Before crossing the courtyard, he turned up the collar of his overcoat. "Shall I drop you off somewhere?" A taxi, ordered by telephone, was stationed in front of the entrance to the Quai des Orfèvres. "At any metro station, Chief." It was pouring down, the rain bouncing off the pavements. Janvier got out of the car at Châtelet. "Good night, Chief." "Good night, Janvier." There was a moment like so many others they had shared, and they both felt the same slightly weary sense of satisfaction. A few minutes later, Maigret noiselessly climbed the stairs to his apartment in Boulevard Richard-Lenoir, fumbling in his pocket for his key. He turned it quietly in the lock and almost at once heard Madame Maigret stir in bed. "Is that you?" She had asked the same question sleepily hundreds, if not thousands of times when he came home in the middle of the night, groping for the bedside light and then getting up in her nightdress and glancing at her husband to gauge his mood. "Is it over?" "Yeah." Did the boy talk in the end? He nodded. Are you hungry?
Maigret and his wife have this happy, great, he has basically this great life. I mean, he has this great relationship, but every story he encounters is someone whose life is just shit. Their relationship is shit, you know, and destroyed. And it's kind of this strange vibe. Yeah. And Madame Maigret, I think, is really a great,
Super important.
There's such a great, the way she's so powerful in those books.
Yeah, she's super powerful.
You never see her at all, I think. It's like you're saying, you see, you just like mentioned in passing. Yeah, exactly. And you just like, she's so vivid and powerful.
She's so vivid.
It's like,
there's one of them is great. There's one where she sort of gets involved in the case. Yeah. It's like she gets very involved. And
she knows the woman.
You got to read the one I was telling you about where they wander around Paris together because they decide to take their vacation in Paris.
Dying to. Those are the bad. Like the one that you told me was
that one, and that one is also really great about those guys you were talking about, the assistants. That's also really great about those guys too.
Where he writes secret letters to Janvier, you said.
Yeah. That one is really.
That sounds like heaven.
The last line of that one is so fucking great. But it's like he knew. It's like he just was delivering. That's really cool. That's really cool. Because that's the one where he's like, and then this gentleman Simenon came to my office.
Yeah, that's what's so cool.
He's like, so I talked to the guy. I don't know what he wanted. And he's just so kind of like suspicious of Simenon. He's so skeptical of Simenon.
Simenon when he's young, and then all through Simenon's life talks about, and like first Simenon came, he's like following him around, writing about him. And then he becomes this annoying star because of Maigret. Like, it's so hilarious.
Kind of like, it's really cool. It is
really great. I mean, that's that he gives you that too, on top of all the other. Yeah. That he gives you that self-reflexive, tricky stuff too.
Well, I guess too, it's like so clearly this alter ego for him because it's like his life. He had like such a fucked up life, and
he was Belgian too, right? So it is a Belgian view of Paris.
Yeah. So this.
I mean, it's like slightly off.
With like the Belgians and those people are outsiders like everywhere except in them. It's such a weird country.
Yeah.
Made up countries, those countries like Flanders and all this stuff is like.
We can cut that. Don't worry, Rob. We'll cut that.
No, we should leave. I'm partial.
Now you just lost it because I'm going to put that in.
But wait, the thing I wanted to say about him though is like, and then that's going to tie into something else, is that. It's like he just was like, I know how to perfectly craft the perfect, like, nourishing amount of story for you to have, like, on a long train trip, or, like, when you're, like, and the book will fit in your pocket, and, like, you'll be able to, like, it's this weird, like, companionship.
It's about, like, 20th century train commuting or something.
Yeah, it is. It's like weird, like you're gonna be sitting in a hotel lobby waiting for somebody, and you might want to like be able to just pass the time, but it's like, and immerse yourself in this fucking like unbelievably like comforting world. And it's weird that those books are comforting because they're so fucked up and disturbing.
I know, but it's like compared to his other books, which we haven't mentioned,
which are amazing.
He wrote just as many, right? I think.
I think so. And those
he wrote one Maigret a year, he said, and then after a while, more.
Those are super disturbing, and those are
so dark. I can't. You can read those more than I get too scared by some of them. They're really dark. Some of I've loved them, but they're like they're reminiscent of Highsmith, or I don't know.
I think they're even more brutal than those.
They're more brutal. Yeah, they're more so. What about this one? I could read this. I have this.
That's a great one. That's a fucking great one. That's one of my favorite ones. You will love that one. You will love that one.
All right, I'll read it tonight. That's my next book.
Maybe I'll read a passage out of that one.
He couldn't have said at what precise moment this feeling of detachment had come over him, but it must have been during that strange journey of exploration he had made while his carcass lolled motionless and he was temporarily released from it. It hadn't been painful, much less agonizing. He had felt rather like a bubble rising to the surface of the water all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, and bursting to mingle with the atmosphere. an easy separation, bringing him a relief so great that he could have cried out in delight like a child watching the ascent of a red balloon. Ah!
Simenon is perhaps the greatest and most truly novelistic novelist in French literature today. He makes one reflect.
Because
This is close.
he is
The height of
truly,
art.
he is a noveliste. And you're just like, what does that mean, Frenchman?
I mean, what would we do without that literary story of France?
No, and I think you love literature, and then you encounter the French, and you finally encounter literature, and it's a whole, and it will completely upend the way you think of anything, because all of a sudden you start reading these people that are just like, the whole code of how to read and what you're reading just gets thrown out the window, and all of a sudden it's like, there's the ambiguity of everything. People are assholes in the books.
Yeah. The whole morals tale of something is just tossed out the window.
The morality of everything goes out the fucking window, and suddenly you're just lost, and you're like, and you have and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And it's true, kind of.
Balzac, I mean.
Yeah, you're suddenly like, really, now you're reading.
Robert.
And I feel like that happened to me, because you know me, I loved the English. I loved all of the.
You were the worst Anglophile I ever met. As an Irishman, I used to
biggest
despise
Anglophile in the world, and I fucking hate them now. And I love the French. It's like, but it is some like my maturity has consisted of loving the French or something.
It is true. I think that they are. I mean, it's hard to say this, but maybe they are the greatest national literature. I mean, sorry, England.
The Russians are a whole other thing. And I love the Russians. And the Russians...
But to me, now I realize that's just Africa. That was just...
Pushkin's grandfather. I got really into reading the Maigrets all the time when my son was born. Because it was like this thing I could read, and it was just like... And I'd read them before, and I'd liked them, but all of a sudden the penny dropped on them. And at the same time, and I associate these two guys in my head together, I always really liked these, but really loved them at the same time, was Plum.
He had was reading Plum, and to me, he's kind of similar in a weird way. I mean, they're like the opposite of each other in some way, but they're like weirdly the same.
Oh,
From the moment the draft stout entered the bar parlour of the Angler's Rest, it had been obvious that he was not his usual cheery self. His face was drawn and twisted, and he sat with a bowed head in a distant corner by the window, contributing nothing to the conversation which, with Mr. Mulliner as its centre, was in progress around the fire. From time to time he heaved a hollow sigh. A sympathetic lemonade and Angostura, putting down his glass, went across and laid a kindly hand on the sufferer's shoulder. "What is it, old man?" he asked. "Lost a friend?" "Worse," said the draft stout. "Mystery novel. Got halfway through it on the journey down here and left it on the train. My nephew Cyril, the interior decorator," said Mr. Mulliner, "once did the very same thing. These mental lapses are not infrequent. Now," proceeded the draft stout, "I'm going to have a sleepless night wondering who poisoned Sir Geoffrey Tuttle Bart." "The Bart was poisoned, was he?" "You've never said a truer word. Personally, I think it was the vicar who did him in. He was known to be interested in strange poisons." Mr. Mulliner smiled indulgently. "Yes, it was not the vicar," he said. "I happen to have read the Merglow Manor mystery. The guilty man was the plumber." "What plumber?" "The one who comes in Chapter 2 to mend the shower bath. Sir Geoffrey had wronged his aunt in the year 96, so he fastened a snake in the nozzle of the shower bath with glue. And when Sir Geoffrey turned on the stream, the hot water melted the glue. This released the snake, which dropped through one of the holes, bit the baronet in the leg, and disappeared down the waste pipe." But that can't be right," said the draft stout. "Between Chapter 2 and the murder, there's an interval of several days." "The plumber forgot the snake and had to go back for it," explained Mr. Mulliner. "I trust that this revelation will prove sedative." "Yes, I feel a new man," said the draft stout. "I'd have lain awake worrying about that murder all night." "Yes, I suppose you would. My nephew Cyril was just the same." "Nothing in this modern life of ours," said Mr. Mulliner, taking a sip of his hot scotch and lemon, "is more remarkable than the way in which the mystery novel has gripped the public. Your true enthusiast, deprived of his favorite reading, will stop at nothing in order to get it. He's like a victim of the drug habit when withheld from cocaine. And my nephew's so amazing, the things people will leave in trains, said a small logger. Bags, umbrellas, even stuffed chimpanzees occasionally, I've been told. I heard a story the other day. My nephew Cyril, said Mr. Mulliner, had a greater passion for mystery stories than anyone I have ever met.